Hey everyone, I'm out here with my friend Alex. Alex works for Radian, as you might be able to read from his shirt here, but feels like a long time ago. We actually worked together at the gun store where I am still employed. So we have a little bit of history going back, so take that into consideration with everything going on here. But we wanted an opportunity to basically come out and use a bunch of the different Radian products on the market, just because I feel like, at least in my perception and the perception of a lot of the customers I talk to, when it comes to Radian weapons, you guys make charging handles and safeties. Like the Raptor charging handles and the Talon safeties are kind of like the thing that everyone knows about, but not as many people know about things like the Ramjet and the Afterburner like we're talking about. Not as many people are familiar with the Model 1s, as we'll be doing a separate video on. Definitely people are not familiar with the new Guardian that you guys are coming out with, again, in another follow-up video. So I wanted to get a chance to actually get some trigger time with it myself, and then also get from the horse's mouth, so to speak, kind of what these products are designed for, what the ideas behind them are, the intent behind them, and just give you guys an opportunity to see some of the other stuff that Radian makes, because again, we all know that the charging handles and safeties are awesome. Most of my guns have the safeties, half of my guns have the charging handles. They're good to go, but let's dive into these. So obviously here in front of me, I've got a Gen 5 Glock 45 with the Ramjet and the Afterburner. What is that?
So these are accessories that we are making for the Glock system. We wanted to make some accessories that really kind of take the handgun world, the Glocks currently, to the next level. So we wanted to make some drop-in accessories that really help you get there. Starting with the barrel and comp. We designed a drop-in barrel and compensator that fits over that barrel that reduces felt recoil by 44%. So that is a pretty significant amount. There's a lot of benefits that we can get out of 44% less recoil. The ability to keep your dot inside your window, follow-up shots, it cuts down a little bit of split times because you're not having to follow as much. So a lot of benefits that we get out of reducing the recoil that much. With making it just a drop-in system, we made it very easy for people just to pull out their existing barrel and drop in our Radian barrel. The design on the front of the barrel, we did a teardrop shape on the front, so our compensator can feed right over the top of this. With that shape matching up to itself, we eliminated all thread lock, shims, and timing that needs to be done with a lot of other comps on the market. So by eliminating that, we eliminated threads, which also makes it available for sale in 50 states, which for us, we really wanted to hit all of those states. So that was a big deal for us there.
Yeah, because if you're not aware, there are states that do not allow you to have threaded barrels on your guns. Now, we can talk in a whole separate video about the legitimacy of stupid rules like that, but this comp is literally all the length that is sticking out from the front of your gun. And so that's the other cool benefit is if you were using a threaded barrel system, you've got that like a quarter inch or so of threaded barrel, and then your comp can start. This gets it down, like, so in this Glock 45 or on a Glock 19, we're talking, it's now a Glock 17 in length. So and because you're not adding to the exterior profile, you can just use a Glock 17 holster.
Exactly. So Safariland holsters, if you're running a 45 with an Afterburner, then your 17 holster is going to be it. If it's a 17 Glock with a Afterburner on it, then it's going to be a 34 holster. So just one size bigger there. We wanted to keep the comp as small as possible while getting the most amount of performance out of that. So that's what we were going for here. And we are very happy with how small of a package this turned out to be with the performance that actually comes out of it.
Right, and because the efficacy there is obviously going to be in question. If you have a smaller comp, is it going to still perform? Is it still going to be effective? And like you were saying earlier, noticeable split time differences, noticeable shot-to-shot recovery differences. Like we got some really interesting high-speed footage, and we were doing some build drills earlier. There was a pretty discernible improvement in split times while still maintaining accuracy. And even when we were doing the slow-mo mag dumps, like I'm just watching the dot just kind of bounce. I never lost sight of the dot. And that's something that I hear a lot of new shooters who are not used to shooting dots. One of the problems they have is maintaining that sight picture and being able to follow that dot. Something like this is going to greatly add to that. Again, without being this giant obnoxious thing on the front of your gun. Now, because of that, it is very form-fitting, and it is then going to be generation specific. So like if you have a Gen 4 Glock 19 or 17, you're not going to be able to use the Gen 5 version or vice versa. But the cool thing is, especially in this case where we've got a Glock 45 or a Glock 19, as long as they're both the same generation, you can still use the same barrel in either one because they use the same barrel system. And again, in my Safariland holster for my Glock, I was able to throw one of these into my gun and still be able to use my same holster system without having to make a bunch of changes. So you're not having to invest in a whole new infrastructure around your gun just because you're adding a comp. And we were even doing some drawing from concealment. And if you're familiar with Glocks, you know, as long as you have an open end holster, you can use any double stack 9mm Glock in any of the holsters. So I didn't have to make any adjustment to still be running a comped pistol in that holster because, again, we're not dealing with this giant obnoxious monstrosity on the front of the gun. Now, so currently you guys have Gen 4 and 5, 19 and 17?
Just the 19 line right now, which hits the 45 and the 19Xs. That's where we are starting right now, Gen 3, 4, and 5 on those. The Gen 3 will work for the previous generations, but after that, the 3, 4, and 5 are specific to itself. That comp there, that's actually in your hand, is a Gen 4 comp, and you can see the difference in where it wraps around the front of that slide.
Right.
Gen 5 is going to be hug the front of that slide a little bit more. Gen 4 is a little bit more flat there. So there is a difference between each one of those generations.
Now, obviously, we got them on Glocks. You can only say so much, I'm sure, if there are intentions to do other guns, but presumably you're not just going to do Glocks forever. There's going to be other options for other popular pistols on the market as well, presumably.
Definitely.
And so when these first came out, I obviously didn't have any direct experience with them. I hadn't shot with them. I've always kind of poo-pooed comps for various reasons. But Alex and I actually were doing some long-range shooting together like 2 months ago now, and I had a chance to actually shoot one for the first time, and it was immediately noticeable. And one of the things I was telling him too, I just recently picked up a pistol that has a built-in compensator as my new carry gun, and while it didn't feel like a ton of difference in that gun, it was definitely, from filming myself and watching footage back, I could definitely see a difference. This one, not only could you see the difference in the video, there was a very discernible, conscious difference that I was able to detect right away from this thing. And again, we're increasing split times by a couple hundredths of a second, which doesn't sound like much, but over the course of a stage where you're doing, you know, 35, 50 rounds of like USPSA, or just being able to get defensive shots on target as quickly as possible, there's a lot of benefit to getting rounds on target quickly and maintaining a sight picture through the whole time.
Absolutely.
Now, one concern that people always have with comps is going to be ammo sensitivity once you start doing that. And so one of the things we did was we tested out a variety of ammo. I brought a bunch of different kind of oddball ammunition, because you can always expect a comp's going to work with your standard like NATO spec 124 grain FMJ or like 115 grain FMJ from a quality manufacturer. How's it going to do with like 158 grain subsonic ammo? How's it going to do with aluminum cased nylon jacketed ammo? And so we did actually test that out, and as you'll see from that, pretty dang well. Now, before we cut into that, one of the options with these is you guys also have a new recoil spring system that you can use in accordance with these, right?
Yeah. So we designed the Afterburner specifically with a lot of law enforcement in mind. We wanted the Afterburner to work best with self-defense loads, things that law enforcement are using. So we designed it to work best with the 18-pound OEM spring. A lot of agencies have them stick there with that OEM spring, so we wanted to keep that and get really good functionality there. But you know, a lot of us aren't law enforcement shooters. We have a lot of different styles of shooting, from the tactical world to competition to even just recreation. We want to do things with our guns. So really being able to tune that gun to what you need specifically as a shooter was very important to us. We wanted to design a spring and guide rod system that would allow the shooter to change that on the fly based on what you're currently shooting. So we made a dovetail system in the compressor, which allows you to quick change between 13, 15, and 18 pound springs. So as you mentioned, changing loads around, really being able to tune that spring weight to exactly what's inside the gun was very important for us.
Right, because that just gives you the opportunity to, you're gonna get an improvement just from using the barrel and comp. But to really squeeze out the maximum potential, especially again for competitive shooters, where you're using the same ammunition every single time you're competing, you know that ammunition, you know how it works in your gun, you can really fine tune it to really squeeze that extra little bit. And then when we're doing the ammunition test, we had the 15-pound spring in there just to see how that did across a wide range of everything, again, from kind of NATO spec 124 up to those kind of oddball types of ammo. And it did really well across the board. So if you wanted to have kind of universality of whatever mag you pick up in whatever your fantasy scenario is, it'll work, versus the person who's running the same ammo in every competition and can really fine tune the gun to that. All right, so right now we're gonna do an ammo test with the Afterburner and Ramjet setup. I've got 7 different types of ammo here. Obviously, we know it runs with PMC bronze because that's what we've been shooting predominantly out here. I just want to see how it does with some more oddball types of ammo. Now we do have the compressor system in here with the what pound spring? 15 pound spring. A lot of what I have here is going to be subsonic, but also just some, at least a couple in here, kind of oddball stuff that I don't even think you can buy anymore. We're going to start up with some spear lawmen. I got some nice corrosion. A lot of this is ammo that's been sitting in ammo cans around my house for a long time. But I got 15 rounds loaded into each one, except for one, which I didn't have enough rounds to load 15 in. We're just going to see if this works. All right, good positive ejection with the spear lawman. Now I've got some S&B 150 grain subsonic ammo. That last one was 147 grain, by the way. Okay, no problems there. Now we've got some Norma. This is 124 grain full metal jacket, so it should be a little bit spicier. Oh, and we did have a failure to feed there. See if we can clear that guy. Just gonna set that aside for right now. See if that continues with the rest of this mag here. Okay, so just had that one malfunction. Just gonna go ahead and load that one back in. Okay, so that was the 124 grain Norma. Now we've got some 150 grain Federal Syntac ammo. Now, I know that's some lower pressure stuff. You could see the case is kind of barely dribbling out there, but it did run all that. Now I've got some 158 grain Fiocchi. This is some very heavy stuff for 9mm. Fed that no problem. Now I've got some Federal RTP, the range target practice. This is 115 grain FMJ, some kind of cheaper stuff here. And that was the stuff that I only had 13 rounds loaded. And then last but not least, I've got some Herters, aluminum cased, nylon jacketed ammo. This stuff apparently was made for them by Blazer. Let's see how this stuff does. Okay, so the only one we had issues with was the Norma. I'm just gonna go ahead, out of my own curiosity, and load up another mag worth of that and see if that problem repeats or if that was just kind of a fluke. We got another magazine, 15 rounds of this Norma ammo here. We'll see if this works. If not, we might play around with some different spring weights with this compressor system, but maybe we won't even need to worry about that. So that ran fine. All of that was good positive ejection. So it could be dealing with a fluke here. I don't know, interesting. But it did really well going from some pretty hot Norma 124 grain full metal jacket all the way up to some 158 grain subsonic stuff from Fiocchi and the pretty trashy aluminum case nylon jacketed stuff from Herders / Blazer. Not too shabby. So we've got another magazine loaded up, full 17 rounds this time of that same Norma stuff. Just for grins and giggles, we switched to the 13-pound spring in the compressor just to see what, if any, difference there is. Definitely a lighter weight required to rack the slide. See how it does. And you can definitely tell it's launching that brass a little bit further. With less resistance on that slide, it would presumably launch that stuff a little bit further, but again, ran 100%. You know, one thing we found with, again, working in a gun store setting, guns like the Smith & Wesson Shield EZ have become extraordinarily popular because of the ability to rack those slides really easily. When we put the 13-pound spring in there just to see how that performed, it totally changed the dynamics of being able to rack that slide back. So there's even some extra benefit there too of just making it a little bit more accessible to your average everyday shooter who might already be recoil sensitive. So having a lighter spring and a comp is kind of a nice combination even for that. Yeah. Now, obviously things like price can fluctuate, especially in the times we find ourselves in now. But if someone is looking to purchase something like this, how much can they expect to be spending approximately?
So MSRP, these are $389.95. That is the barrel and the comp that comes with that $389. So you're getting everything needed to drop that barrel and comp into your gun.
And again, I know that that might sound like a lot to a lot of people out there. And again, that's not an insignificant amount of money. But when you take into consideration a good quality aftermarket threaded barrel is going to run you $150 to $200, sometimes even more. And then a good comp is going to run you another $150 to $200, if not more. Again, you're coming out pretty nice. And again, it's something that's 50 state legal, that you don't have to make any major modification to your gun. Works with just about anything. You don't have to worry about timing. You don't have to worry about shims. You don't have to worry about Loctite. Just kind of takes a lot of that extra worry out of your brain, in my opinion. So I think that that's actually a pretty good value when you take into consideration everything going on there. Now, availability is still pretty limited on these. I know we've been having a hard time getting them at the store where I work, but I know you guys are obviously working on that, presumably. Anything else that you want to mention about the Ramjet or the Afterburner? Now, let me ask you this real quick. How does the barrel do without the comp on there at all, with just that extra barrel sticking out?
It does function still, so you can still get good reliability with it. It will still function. So if you ever wanted to take the comp off, that option is there for you.
Okay. Yeah, so if you're worried about muzzle flash in your eyes from the excessive, unburned powder coming out of the front of the gun, you can take off the comp, you'll be fine. I think you'll be fine with it on there too, but we'll just throw that out there for people. So cool. So if people want to find out more information about this, or just be able to follow your guys' social media to see when those other products come out for other guns or generations in the future, where can they look?
Radianweapons.com is going to have all of our information on the products across the board. Through there, you're able to get in touch with our customer service guys. They're very on top of it. Any questions that you might have, they're very eager to help you. There's a sign-up list on there to where you can jump on a notify me list if you did want an email as soon as things come back into stock. We understand that the availability of them is a little light. We are working as hard as we can to get these out as fast as possible. So we apologize for that, but we are getting them out.
That's the reality of it. And one thing that I always think is worth mentioning, especially, so you guys know I'm here in Oregon. The word Oregon is part of my channel name. I always have a soft spot in my heart for companies in Oregon. And, if you look at a company like Radian Weapons, they're not some like faceless, corporation that's just cranking stuff out without really caring about quality control or the needs of the customer. I don't get that impression when the couple times that I've come to visit Radian Weapons. People actually care about their jobs. You're supporting jobs here in Oregon, here in the United States, with competitive wages to keep qualified and competent people doing this. It's going to take money, and it's also going to take time for them to be able to crank that out. I think that's worth mentioning. So have realistic expectations, because it's not some sweatshop overseas. These are real Americans working real machines, doing the best that they can. I think that's fair to say. Again, I'll have the links where I can. I can definitely at least link their Instagram page, but you'll probably have to just Google Radian Weapons to find out their website, because YouTube doesn't usually take kindly to me putting stuff like that in the description down below. Again, you guys saw the shooting footage of these things. The results kind of speak for themselves, but I just wanted to have Alex articulate some of the finer points of these and just help understand why someone might be interested in a product like this one. So definitely keep an eye out on the channel, because we will be talking about the Guardian and the Model 1, depending on what order these come out in. The Guardian might be first, but again, we got a lot more coming from Radian Weapons. Alex, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ryan.
And as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.